Hi, Dave. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And I'm wondering how you're getting on in the exotic climes of Costa Rica. It's not quite the same here in England, cooler and not so exotic, but I do imagine you on the beach in the sand with the warmth. It must be wonderful.
Well, it has its sublime moments, but it also has the antithesis of that, which is so far a big tarantula in my bathroom and another one outside my little casita here.
Wow.
And I am so like arachnophobia. It's not even funny. I'll take a python and put it around my neck, no worries. But give me a big hairy tarantula and I lose it.
Oh my
I
God.
don't
Well, so
know.
would I. Oh, crikey.
Okay, well, on with the show then, Dave.
All right, far away.
So I'd like to start with my theory that this whole white colonialist story was a big farce in order to default blame of the earth invader parasites onto the white male. And then they've been upping the ante ever since to the point where now all white males are privileged and they must not take the jobs anymore and they must be replaced with X, Y, or Z who is not a white male. And going along with that thread, we've got my vision that I saw of the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria becoming the Nano, the Prion, and the mRNA, Mary RNA. And they've jumped timelines and now they're sailing the arteries of our bodies in order for the final conquest of the angelic human soul. So, where you come in, Dave, is that I know that you know who is doing this and where they came from originally. And I'd love it if you could bring us all through that up until the current day and tell us who in the heck is responsible for this.
Well, first of all, let me say what a fabulous, a really brilliant, creative vision that you've given to us there. I mean, when are you writing this Hollywood script for the whole thing? Because it's awesome, even down to the names of the three Christopher Columbus ships there. I think that is just amazing. So respect, Jane, for the dynamic depth of your creative instinct. It's brilliant.
I just
How
thought
you
of one other thing too, Dave. Columbus was the one who sailed those ships. And the meaning of Columbia, the etymology of that is New World. So here we go again.
Yeah, and of course that's what they created for the third particle of the tripartite. You know, the Vatican, the City of London, and Washington, which is the District of Columbia.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, you're bringing all the pieces together brilliantly, and just let me know when you're writing this book.
I'm doing it right now.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, I will definitely. Do you want me to pre-order now?
Well, of course you get a free copy, Dave, because if it wasn't for you, like I always say in every show, if you hadn't introduced me to the my galactic history, I would never have put any of this together.
Well, you know, we stand on the shoulders of people who've gone before us, and you know, nothing's original. We've managed to collect between us a lot of the disparate parts of the story that has been our real galactic history, and so we are now beginning to put it together in a meaningful sense for the 21st century. So we're doing this together in different ways, but using the same material from the deep past. So you wanted to know who was responsible. Um, well, it wasn't me. um, the interesting thing you said there was straight away was about the white, the privileged white male. That is certainly a very interesting statement that you made there, and I can certainly concur with what's going down recently, in the last few decades, about the slow distortion of the virtue of the white male, and in its being replaced, as we know, in different ways. And that's what the migrancy and the immigration and all this sort of stuff is all about too. But in fact, the reason why the white male became so important in this whole drama was because the DNA constructs way back in the past, 150,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, when this whole drama, before the Atlantean drama became the pivotal arena for all of us, before that, the Aryans and the Hebrews were both white-skinned angelic humans. And they were connected through the Hebrew cloister group, which gave rise to the root race, which is the Aryans. And the significant thing about that was the Aryans and the Hebrews were the only race of the angelic humans who, after a while, had access to the fourth and strands, which we got 12, but they had the fourth and the fifth, and none of the rest of us did have. So what did that do? That meant that the Aryans and the Hebrews were a target. And they were a target for the fallen angelics to be able to incarnate in Earth through interbreeding with the bloodlines of the Aryans and the Hebrews. And this is what made them effectively sort of like the chosen people. And they were white-skinned, whereas many of the others were brown-skinned, red-skinned, yellow-skinned, and so on. So that's where 100,000 years ago, the white-skinned and the white males, because patriarchal control was in the hands of the males, obviously, that's why the white-skinned races became so predominant and so important, because they were the hybrid human Leviathan forces that were mostly prosecuting all of the fallen angelic agendas on surface Earth. So that clarifies why the white-skinned aspect has been so important. Who organized all that was a variety of suspects. There's the Anunnaki, but the Anunnaki actually can be divided into 3 or 4 different groups, and they all became allied with lots of other groups. So originally, the Anunnaki came from the Anu, which were the dimension 11 Elohim. And I know you've done a lot of work on that. But there was also the Seraphim, which were the dimension 10 Draconians. So the Anu were the aquatic apes and often reptilian, and the Draconians were the dragon races of dimension 10. And those eventually fell into lower dimensional realms and came to try to control Earth. So the people who have been really behind all of this controlling Earth have been the dimension 10 Seraphim and the dimension 11 Elohim Anu. And that's really a very broad
Yes.
brush for the
So how does
history.
that translate from the seraphim up into the future?
I'm not quite sure what you mean.
Yes, the bloodlines, or were they the hybrid human offspring, or were they direct fallen angel ancestors, the ones that are doing this to us today, that are inserting these poisons and nanotech into our body in order to remote control us toward post-humanism?
Well, that's a combination of things, Jane, and it's a very interesting point you've brought up there. Originally, it was the Anunnaki collectives, lots of them, and the Draconian Omicron Necromiton collectives, many of them, who invested lots of energy into Earth and psychically controlled the Leviathan force of the human hybrids that they had created and put onto Earth.
And an
They were
example
controlled.
of that, an example of a Leviathan human hybrid, would that be like a Bill Gates or a Rothschild or something like that?
Yeah, you can go back in history. Pretty much, not all, but almost all hybrid elites have been in that way affected psychically. Astral tagging, bond possession, celestial imprinting, all of these things passing through the DNA construct, of course, and through inbreeding, forced interbreeding, have manifested these hybrid Leviathan force human elites. And not all of them, there have been some exceptions, but most, the vast majority, let's say 95%, have been so affected, so that they actually believe, many of the ultra elites of these human hybrids actually believe that they are of that bloodline, that they connect with a fallen angelic bloodline. And so they know more about the true history of Earth than the rest of us do, because we've been kept in the dark.
Okay, so then just to clean it all up, let's go all the way back to a human angelic indigo genus, indigenous, all the way back to the 12 original tribes, and there was white, red, yellow, brown, black, all of those. And we, as the white human angelic, I, as a white woman, and my heritage and my ancestral blood goes back all the way back to there. And you, as a white male, are not to be blamed because you are one of the 12 original tribes. And we did not create this. We did not create the wars and run roughshod over all the Native American people. We were not the ones that did that. And this is what I want to get across to people, that at one point we were just one of many original tribes that were seated here on Earth. And we have absolutely nothing to do with the ravaging devastation, disease, wars, and everything that's been perpetrated upon the indigo genus peoples of this earth.
No, you're absolutely right. We've been carrying the can historically for thousands of years for everything that's gone wrong. It's been a diabolical nightmare, actually. I mean, and lots of the Leviathan races, for example, and this may be contentious, but when you say about the white-skinned races dominating the Native American tribes, for example, well, that wasn't just the white-skinned Americans who came and did that. I mean, for example, in 1375 AD, there were speakers for the North American Indians and for the Peruvians, and there were no white Caucasians in 1375 in America at the time. But those speakers of the cosmic texts, the CDT plates, were harassed and prosecuted and persecuted by Leviathan forces who were Native American Indian tribes who had been affected by the fallen angelic energies. And they were sent into North America to attack the Hopi, the Navajo, and all sorts of speaker cosmic divine design, the Urantrian brownskins. So, all sorts of, it's not just white skinned Caucasians who have been doing all of that sort of thing. They were put up to it, all of them, different colors, different. For example, if I hope I'm not over spinning this, but I was in 10,400 BC. I was involved with the Yu races in China, who had received some speaker contracts, and they were going to talk about the CDT plates and explain the cosmic divine design to all of the what we would call now the Chinese indigenous population. And I was there as an assistant, sort of, an associate. And we were stopped from doing that in a colossal way by Mongolian raiders the raider teams who came out of the West and destroyed so much of what we were trying to teach. That happened 10,400 BC. We're talking 12,500 years ago. So the process has been whereby hybrid humans in various Leviathan force collectives have been sent around the world to terrorize. Basically, the war on terror, they say, began in 2001. It's been going for 15,000 years, and it's been to terrorize angelic humanity and also to put them eventually on the hook for everything that's gone down. You only have to read Yuval Harari's very, very popular book on Homo sapiens, and you can tell that he absolutely believes that we're on the hook for being nasty creators of the most horrible things on this planet. And
Well,
out of that comes the desire for transhumanism, the desire to change the angelic genome because we are nasty and evil. And so we'll artificially infect you with something so that you can be better.
okay, breaking news, breaking news. You heard it here first from Dave Emery, the most amazing historian ever. Well, now you just blown my mind with all that information, Dave. I had a comeback and it was so good, but you had me so wrapped up in what you were saying that I lost my train of thought. So it's not just the white colonialists, it was all of the races that were pitted against each other in order to create the division so that we might never, ever, ever have that unity consciousness, because that would have been their greatest threat. These Earth Invader, Anunnaki, Draconian, I love the bipedal dolphins.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But the interesting thing is, though, Jane, because it's a very convoluted history. It's full of avenues and striations and different reality fields. We've been so time looped in so many different ways. It's confusing in the extreme. However, when you said about the 12 tribes, you're quite right. The 12 tribes of angelic humans were the original humanity that existed here. This is 25, 30 million years ago. The history, of course, we've written about, but what eventually happened is that 800,000 years ago, we had to be reseeded again, and we came into the 12 tribes, as you just explained. And the 12 tribes, each of them was set around not places where it was safe and there was water and there was food available. They were set around the 12 Stargate areas so that they could be healers, guardians, and protectors of the Stargates, which are the chakras, the energy centers of Earth. So each of the 12 tribes was seeded into one of those areas. For example, and I mean, I tell you where I come from originally. My original tribe is the Rigveda, which is tribe 6. And the interesting thing about this is that they were both in Russia and in the Thar Desert in India. So we had a mixture of brown skins. I remember the times in the Indian areas where I was a dark brown skinned angelic tribe 6, and also when I was a Russian as a white skinned tribe 6. We were the same thing, and the tribe 6 eventually became Celtics, and invested Atlantis, and then went into Ireland and Scotland and England until we were kicked out of there. So all sorts of things have happened to us. So you're quite right to say about we have been all of the colours, that we've been everything. In your case, I'm not sure because you will know this, but I think you may well be Stargate 12, which is Montségur in southern France. So that could well have, I feel, knowing you a little bit as I do, that you were a Stargate 12 angelic human tribe race. And that was your home position to guard Stargate 12, Montségur in southern France, which is why you have such a connection with all of that.
And Mary Magdalene too. I have such a connection with her Ascension teachings and the fact that with flamenco's new timeline, I believe that the Christ consciousness and the Magdala Ascension consciousness were teaching in France during the late 1100s when the Cathars formed, and they became the basis for the whole Cathar spiritual evolutionary wave that then the Roman Catholic Church stepped in
Destroyed.
to burn them all, take away everything they had, and establish their own rule of law after stealing most of their ceremonies, rituals, spiritual oaths, and all of those things. They just usurped them for their own in order to take over. And I feel very, very strongly about that, especially with the cave art and the fact that there is a Magdalenian prehistoric period, and that the very, very skull that they found, that that the skull that they found ended up being a prehistoric display in Lasso, all dressed up, and basically they bombed Mary Magdalene back to the Stone Age, just like they bombed Hiroshima back to the Stone Age
Yeah.
during the war. And the Stone Age itself is an invention because it was only a period where after the antediluvian phase, we had to come back and get our grounding again after losing everything. Which brings me to this amazing thought that I had, Dave, and I have to share it with you. So the reason that Tartaria was destroyed was a divine intervention that the dark side undertook actually on our behalf. And I'll tell you how I arrived at that, shall I?
Yeah, far away.
Actual architecture was external from the human form, but they were using it to get to God, to bring heaven to earth. And really, the true architecture is our own bodies. This is the dome. We need to correct directly to prime creator source. And those buildings, as beautiful as they were, stood in the way of the next evolutionary step for the angelic humans. What do you think of that?
I think that's a very astute comment, actually. Yeah, it, it's very difficult to fit that in with the narrative that we've been trained to believe in. The time narrative. But in fact, I think what you've just said there is, as I say, very astute, and it is an insightful surgical intervention into the narrative that we have been trained to believe in, and it carries with it a lot of very serious truths. I think that's I can tell from the way you're talking, because this is a very cathartic experience that you're talking about here, which comes from the word Cathar. And of course, I can see that you are and have been in previous lifetimes, still going now, a Cathar. It's just as you've been talking, it's just come back to me. You are definitely a Cathar, and so you have been involved in that. And one other thing about the Cathars, which I think is also pretty pivotal, and certainly with regard to you. And I'm only talking from how I feel about you because I know you a little bit. And that is that the Cathars originally came, well, they came out of Bogomil in the Slavic regions, but before that, they had to escape to Bogomil out of the Essenes. The Essene divide of 23 AD, which was when the fallen angelics and the hybrids managed to destroy and disperse all of the Essenes out of the Jerusalem area. You were originally and are an Essene, carrying the scriptures of heaven and you that's how the Cathars manifested themselves into the Slavic regions and then into Stargate 12. And now through what you're talking about here, you're bringing together these disparate aspects of our huge planetary history, and that, well, I'm sounding a little bit prophetic here, but that's really why you're here.
Well, that's amazing, Dave. It's nice to be affirmed with my memory. And the other cathartic thing that I realized as well that I really want to share with you of all people, even though it's a little bit out of context, but it also follows taking all the lies and revealing them. So I was looking at the moon, and you know how they always say hidden in plain sight?
Yeah.
That it was brought here 13,000 years ago by the Anunnaki. Is that correct? As a control mechanism.
Well, the actual date I'm not certain of, but
It was a
13,000. But what
Tuesday.
I
It was
sorry,
it was a Tuesday, right?
yeah, but not before 4 p.m. because that's when the shops, you know. But anyway, no, look, seriously, the interesting thing is you said 13,000 BC. Well, 13,400 BC, the parameter shield of Earth was distorted. The parameter shield is the fifth dimensional, fifth harmonic universe vertical shield. So if you can imagine the orb, well, I know we can talk about flat Earth, but if you just imagine an orb, we mostly have our horizontal shields, which are standing waves of structure which hold us in place. All right, you've got you've got five horizontal shields, but you've also got a parameter shield which goes that way round you. All right, the parameter shield of Earth goes that way. And what that does is that consolidates you within the universal matrix. Now, in 13,400 BC, the energies, the controlling energies of the whole planetary system were distorted because the planetary shield was shifted. That's 13,400 BC. And in that instant, the feminine and the feminine and the masculine energies got shifted, and that was from that moment on, we had real problems aligning the masculine and the feminine. So the patriarchal energies began to take over significantly. So when you mentioned about the moon and the 13,400 BC, that's to do with the parameter shield, which goes that way around Earth. And in order to control some of the energies, like they say tides and all this sort of thing, and the feminine menstrual cycle and so on, that was activated through an artificial satellite, which we call the moon, which is supposed to be hollow, by the way. And so I would say I'm endorsing what you're saying there. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to add to that now. This is going to blow your mind. It has, we all know it's there's a dark side of the moon. So what it is actually reflecting back to Earth is duality. And as long as it's there, it will reflect this duality. But the problem is we have people on Earth like me who love the moon, adore the moon, send the moon love, and it's keeping it alive and it's keeping it active because it's using that love loosh to project back the very opposite of what we are giving. It's inverting that love and turning it into control. So that when we go, so this leads up to my big, big question. When we get to New Earth, True Earth, whatever you want to call it, and I know we only have a few minutes left, Dave. I'm going as fast as I can. So when we go to True Earth, is that the end of the moon duality, the dark side, the man in the moon, patriarchy? Is that the end of that? Or can we take a beautiful moonlight with us? It's a false light because it's reflected light. The light of the moon doesn't come from within itself to shine upon us. So when we go to True Earth, do you think that we're going to have a moon, a beautiful moon that's our moon that lights up from within onto us? Poetic.
Well, the answer to that is, do you want there to be one?
Yes, so I can take
Well,
one there.
Well, I know I've seen one of your wonderful pictures. I've got a copy of it with you put the moon in. It's a totally beautiful one. There is nothing wrong or not right about the desire for the alternative light, the alternative shining that the moon gives us. And so consequently, of course, there's nothing absolutely, it's, if you want to take the moon with you wherever you go, you bring its light and the energy that it gives to you, and you put that into the context of your own reality. So of course it's perfectly okay. I think that what you've been talking about here is a very, as I say, insightful insert into how we can understand what has actually happened to us here on Earth. The whole thing is, if I can just go back to the very beginning, the whole thing is to do with trying to take over Earth. Earth has been the prize. Earth has been the prize for many, many different collectives who have wanted to secure a permanent energy source to feed off. And there are lots of different ways of feeding. For example, you mentioned about the louche and the love. That's what all of the Greek myths and the gods wanted. They wanted humanity to love them and to worship them. And what we're really talking about there is to offer them their internal personal energies. And that's what you're talking about there. So they wanted Earth. Earth was the prize. But guess who became the targets? Angelic humans. And why? Because angelic humans are keyed dynamically to and biodynamically to the morphogenetic field of Earth. Earth and the angelic humans are in a deep and abiding universal relationship bioenergetically. And that's why we're so key to it. So while Earth was the prize that was wanted by the fallen angelics for food and energy and resources, it soon became obvious that the angelic human had to be the target. Because if they could control us and our energies, then they could control the Earth planetary systems. And that's what the whole of our history has been about. So when you began here talking about the white-skinned people being blamed for everything, that's simply one aspect, one chapter of this astonishing story where we have been the prize to be able to, we have been the targets to make sure that they could get the prize, which is Earth.
Wow. These are just such huge and vast topics, which we both know we could spend hours talking about. And I've really shared everything that I need to, and I know we're almost out of time. So I was wondering if there was any closing remarks you'd like to make as we leave here and say goodbye to our fabulous audience.
Well, as I always try to say, you know, the end that we're approaching is just the beginning. It's the beginning of a new Earth. It's the beginning of a new universe. And it's really quite pivotally thrilling, to be honest with you. We've been through the dark night of the soul for so many, many millennia. I can't even explain how it's billions of years. And it's all been part of a narrative which has eventually, unbelievably, brought us to this particular moment now, where we are awakening to who we are. We are remembering all of our astonishing celestial energies, Jane. And in that moment, we recreate the universe anew, and we are stepping out into this new earth, this new universe. And that is the destiny of joy, which we are all hand in hand embarking upon. And we've been through the dark parts, but now we're opening up into the dawn of a new future, and it's wonderful. And it's due to people like yourself beginning to explain to us the history of what we've been through and the dynamics of how we have been able to change and to shift the energies.
Yes, absolutely. It reminds me of that nursery rhyme, The Bells of St. Clemens. I owe you 5 farthings, after they took down all the bells. And I don't know if you can hear me because you've frozen, Dave. Oh, did you hear
Yeah,
what I
you
said?
froze, you froze as well, but it's the excitement of what we're talking about.
Oh, is that what it is? But anyway, that's why I'm working on the Codex for the True Earth right now, and it contains the transition period. It contains new glyphs that are made for True Earth to look upon, to embody what we need with this, our transmutation as a living being into the crystalline self, into the true earth. And I'm really, really excited about doing it. And even more than that, I want to take it and move it into like a children's history book too. So
Wow,
that when our children are here, the future children, they will know where we came from, what we endured, how we suffered,
sure.
and know their true history.
I agree with you. That's what we need. It's sort of like a new Earth speaker contract. We've had many of them for hundreds of thousands of years, people trying to tell us the truth of the cosmic design. And here we are in a new Earth realm, embarking, stepping out into something new. And your book can be the new speaker contract version of that.
Well, if it's blessed by you, it's sure to be a fine piece of work, Dave. So, okay, so I just want to say thank you so much for honoring me and being here. And until next time.
Until next time, and I will imagine you on the beach in Costa Rica talking to a dog who managed to find your phone.
Okay, good imagery. Okay,
Okay,
bye, Dave.
bye.
So thank you very much for listening. And I'll have this up soon. And make sure you go to Dave's Substack, and he's writing a book, and it should be out soon. And mine will probably take quite a while, but I also have a Substack that you can visit, Substack at Jane Evershed. So thank you very much. Goodbye.